I'm Sean, this is my McLaren 720S, and today I'm going to change out the turbo inlet pipes on this car. It is a common problem on the 720S. I've always heard there's between the 18s, 19s, and in the 2020 models that were resolved, but on a 2020 I have replaced these, so I don't know exactly how accurate that is, or at what point during production they may have changed it, but the 18s and 19s are definitely affected by this problem. I've done other videos on it before, little clips on Instagram, that kind of thing, showing what happens, and I'm probably going to find it on this one, so I'll show you in this one. But here's what we've got for replacements. We've got these guys. They are made of silicone, like in any other charge pipe that you would have on diesels and that kind of thing. And these are going to get swapped out for the plastic ones. These do not have a little baffle that breaks off, so, you know, good on that. It's also going to smooth the flow. I'm told there are some other ones that you actually gain like 30 horsepower or something like that because of the flow. I would expect the same thing from these, though it has not been dyno tested, so I cannot verify. These you can get on emfautos.com. It goes to my e-commerce site, so you can buy these same ones if you would like. So the first thing we're going to do is get the under tray off, and I'm going to do that off camera because it's kind of boring and no point in that. And once I get into the important parts, I'll bring you back. Now, once we're under the car, we've got to do two things, one of which you can do in a little bit different order, but what I have done is taken the under tray off prior to getting my bridge jack in here. Now, I'm using a bridge jack because I've got a 4-post lift. If you've got a 2-post lift, not necessary. If you're using jack stands, not necessary. But it's very difficult or impossible to get the under tray off with this in the way. Now, why do we have to lift the back of the car up to begin with? Because we got to take the wheels off. But while I'm under here, I'm going to do everything I need to do under here. We've got one clamp right there. Is a 7mm, I believe it is, or you can use a flat screwdriver to get that clamp loose. And then there's that hose right up there that you have to break the clamp loose and pull the hose off. It is easier if you start on these while everything is secure to get these hoses off. Otherwise you're kind of fighting it moving a little bit. So I found if you do that ahead of time, it's a little bit easier. And the same thing on the other side. We've actually got two hoses. Can't even really see them up there, but they're tucked behind there. Those are very difficult to get to. They're even more difficult to put back on. But we've still got the same hose clamp right there. So just remember, the one that has two hoses is the driver's side. If you're in one of the left-hand drive countries, it's the driver's side. So we're going to get both of those loose, and I may show you how I do that. And then we'll go take the wheels off, take the liners out, and take the wheels off, and I'll show you the top end. I had to move the bridge jack, I had to drop it down and move it back because it was in the way of doing this side. But if you notice up in here, one is missing the clamp because I took the clamp off, and the other one is completely broken off of the pipe. Now, we're not worried about saving that, so the fact that it broke off is no big deal. The other side also broke, and here's how I got it loose. Really long flat screwdriver. You can get right under the edge of that clamp because you're supposed to kind of get under to pop it loose, friction clampy thing. Pop that flat screwdriver up under it, and sometimes you can pop them out that way. These were very, very tight, and they tend to be. Usually you can pop them loose, but this time you couldn't. They just broke off, so it'll be a little bit easier to get to from the top. Don't worry about getting that clamp off. We can do that later once we're on top. Since I got both of those loose, and I'll get these unscrewed. Now, these are going to be reused, so try not to damage those unless you just want to replace them, but these can be reused, and I will do that. So I'll get it back up, take the wheels off, take the liner out, then we'll see what's going on top. Once your wheel is off, you got to take the fender liner out. And in doing so, you've got some Phillips plastic screws here that they suck. You cannot apply pressure that way while you're doing it. They won't come out. You just gotta light-handedly take these guys out. There's a bunch of T30s up here, around here. If it doesn't start to move on its own, you're missing one. It should be very floppy when you take all these T30s out. Ta-da! Now with the liner out, we've got to take this hose clamp loose, which is a 7mm. The other 7mm right here, and this is the part that we're actually going to be removing from the whole thing, but we got to take this whole thing out too. So these 3 are 8mm. We're going to take this whole section of pipe out to free up that. And there we go. There's our broken piece right there. Now quickly, I know what you're thinking. How do you know if you need to replace these things? There's a few different ways. One, if you're used to driving the car and you seem to have a loss of power because, you know, say maybe that's jammed up in there, less airflow means less air in, which means less air combusting, which means less power. So that's one way. The other way is something that I was experiencing at a higher boost, not even a lot of boost, just some boost scenario. It sounds like a Dyson vacuum in the car, not a paid product placement. But with the windows up, you just hear like a whistling. It really does sound like a vacuum in there. I suspect the other side is going to be just as bad, but the passenger side seems to be the side that always does it. If it's going to be one of them, it's usually the passenger side first. But mine is so loud with the Dyson sounds that I'm pretty sure it's going to be both of them. But that is one way that you can tell. I will investigate and see if maybe fuel economy might be another thing that changes it. But hearing the whistling sound or the vacuum sound, loss of power, definitely one of those things. Now don't forget to get your clamp off that other end if you haven't already. We've only got one hose on this one, so that's one we've got. I'm going to go ahead and put my clamp kind of in place there, not tight, and this one also up top, which you can do after the fact. This clamp is the one that came off of it. You have to go extend it all the way out, and it will barely fit over, but it will fit. I almost forgot. You've got to put new clamps on those lines that were pulled off of there. I recommend using a very narrow band and the smallest one you can, because the other side, it's very, very tight. You have to put these very close together. The smaller the clamp you have, the better. I think these, when they aren't getting dropped, I think the maximum is 19 millimeters. It might be 24. It's around that. I ran out of these small ones. I got to order more. So this larger one, I have used in the past, and it's fine on the single side. On the double side, it's extremely cramped and difficult to work with. So use these smaller ones. You'll thank me. This can be a fight. You've got to slide this in there, not securing anything. Slide this in, not securing it to anything, even up here. But you want to kind of work this around. It helps if you kind of twist it as you're trying to put pressure on it. Make sure you got this good all the way around. Sometimes on the back side it cannot quite be in there. Make sure you got it all the way around. Then you can go back, secure this to this pipe, get all these secured down here, and then you can go down to the bottom and twist that and arrange it how you need to before you tighten that clamp. So make sure you get everything in place from here down before you go tightening any clamps. Over here on the other side, same thing with the fender well. Nothing different about this one. So once I get this out, then I will show you what is different. By the way, if this looks like something you don't want to do, you can hire me to do it. I'll come to you and do it. I do it all the time. That's kind of my business. If you go to mcmedics.com, you'll see kind of what's going on there. But I can trouble you to do this as well. So on this side, we have the same clamp up here, bolts, clamp here, but this one's a bit tighter. We've got some other stuff going on down here. So we're gonna have to cut this. I take a razor blade and I cut it right down there, and that does make it somewhat easier to get, but you're still gonna have to force it quite a bit. You can see what I cut off there. It's quite a bit, but that does allow you to kind of snake it out this way and pull and grab it out. The other side, not broken. Further chalking up to the record of passenger side does it first. So only one of them, but that was pretty sure causing my Dyson sounds. You might also notice back there, we've got the two hoses there, and I still got to get that one loose because it broke off, so I've got to get the clamp off of it and get that out. But you can see it's all kind of crammed in there, and the light fell down. Remember, while you're cursing putting this one pipe in, there is a wiring harness down there. You probably can't see it because everything's so crammed, but there is a wiring harness down there. Gotta make sure you don't grab on it, and make sure that you're kind of in line a little bit with those two hoses you got to connect on top. So that's kind of my general placement, and we're gonna get this other pipe in here and then fool with the bottom one again. Down here on the bottom side, you can see we've got this tightened. We've got those two hoses up in there. Those are a bit of a struggle. This one, on the other hand, quite a bit easier to get to. So everything's wrapped up here. Now we can put the under tray back on. If you notice, I've already put the wheels back on, fender liners and everything, and yeah, that's because I was also doing other stuff like accumulators. So yeah, if you took it apart, you can figure out how to put it back together. Make sure you torque your wheels, by the way.